West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, 10 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, September 3rd. Goodness. Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest news and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Be sure to follow me on X at Jeff Hunt for unfiltered insights. Whether you're sipping coffee in Arvada, commuting down I-25, or starting your day in Thornton, we're here to ignite debate on the issues that matter to the Denver metro area and all of Colorado. Let's dive into today's red-hot story, President Trump's bold strike on drug smuggling boats from Venezuela. One case killing 11, sending a clear message to narco-traffickers. Trump's back, taking no prisoners in the fight to protect America's borders and streets from the flood of fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamines pouring in from places like Venezuela. The Pentagon's deployed warships to the Caribbean. Trump's promising more action to crush the drug trade. Left, meanwhile, clutching their pearls. One lawmaker here in Colorado saying it's horrible that these people are being killed without going through the judicial process, calling it reckless. But let's get real. Drugs from Venezuela have fueled crimes in our cities, from Denver's Five Points to Aurora's streets, and killed more Americans than any other terrorist organization out there. According to the DEA, over 70% of cocaine in the U.S. is coming through our southern border, much of it tied to Venezuela's corrupt regime. Here in Colorado, we're seeing the fallout. Overdose deaths in Denver County and other places. Trump's strike is a gut punch to cartels and their enablers in the Venezuelan region. And it's resonating, I think, with Coloradans. We want to hear from you. Join the conversation. Donald Trump taking action, real action, in the war on drugs. Or are you buying the left sob story? Standing with the smugglers and demanding they get judicial treatment first. Want to hear from you? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
All right. Good Wednesday morning, 61 and sunny in Denver. Expecting a high of 87 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
This one to me seems to be a slam dunk for the president. And I should tell you, I am absolutely opposed to this decision. I think the president is wrong to move it to Alabama, but he gets to make that call as the commander-in-chief.
The great George Brockler on the show last hour with Jeff and Billy. DJT moving U.S. Space Command from the Springs to Huntsville, Alabama. 47 says Colorado's laws on voting by mail was a factor in his decision. And D.A. Brockler says, you know what, that may hurt 47 as Phil, not wiser, sues.
And so the only grounds I can see, and I'm no genius in this area, is the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. And what that means is Phil has to argue that Trump's decision was arbitrary and capricious. That's tough because he'd made the decision in 21. Biden waited 2 years to reverse it, and now within the first 9 months of the Trump administration, first 8 months, he reverses it back. When Trump links that decision to something completely unrelated to national security, and that is, by the way, Colorado has mail-in ballots, he invites the argument that this decision was arbitrary and capricious and untethered to rational basis. That's the one thing it seems to me that Phil could argue now.
Good point. Thank you, George, for coming on. Aurora's police chief says a suspect refused to obey commands and tossed away a gun before he was shot and killed by an officer on Saturday.
It appears the officer believed he faced an imminent threat of death or serious injury, and he acted.
Chief Todd Chamberlain talked about the shooting of 37-year-old Rajon Belt Stubblefield on Tuesday. The chief said that Belt Stubblefield refused orders to stay in his vehicle and encouraged bystanders to pick up his discarded gun while moving toward the officer. Chamberlain said the officer struck Belt Stubblefield in an attempt to de-escalate the confrontation and then shot the suspect as he kept moving forward. The chief promised to publicly release body cam footage of the shooting once Belt Stubblefield's family has a chance to view it. The governor of Illinois says 47 is getting ready to send troops to Chicago. JB's Big Boy Pritzker says he's learned that federal agents and military vehicles began staging on Monday on a nearby federal property. Pritzker says DJT plans to direct, I don't know why I'm doubling up everything. I just said direct and went direct immigration enforcement agents to, quote, raid Latino communities in the upcoming weeks. DJT isn't messing around. We struck a cartel cocaine speedboat in the Caribbean headed to the States, killed 11 TDA narco terrorists, and sent a message to cartel, i.e. government in Venezuela, a message. Here's what Nicolas Maduro, that fine human being, Venezuelan dictator, hiding out what he had to say.
Trump, you have to be careful because Marco Rubio wants you to stain your hands with blood, with a terrible war against South America and the Caribbean, because this would be all-out war in the continent.
And Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be in Mexico and Ecuador this week to discuss cartels and immigration. The State Department says Rubio is expected to meet today with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum to discuss a new security agreement that would fight the flow of weapons and fentanyl across the U.S. border. Dozens of Epstein sexual abuse victims are expected to rally in D.C. today as the first batch of documents related to the late sex offender is being released. VP JD set to visit Minneapolis today following last week's deadly shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School. He's expected to hold a series of private meetings to convey condolences to the families of those affected by the tragedy. Big practice today for the Broncos as they prepare for Sunday's game at Mile High, 2:05 kickoff against the Titans as they kick off the new season. Tomorrow night, Cowboys at the Eagles, and the Cowboys without Micah Parsons now. Was it a good move for Jerry Jones to allow Parsons to move on to Green Bay? We shall see. 59 in Arvada, 60 in Aurora, 61 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny to partly sunny and very pleasant here in Denver and along the Front Range today, tomorrow, and Thursday. As nice September weather will dominate. Highs will be 80s, overnight lows will be 50s. For Friday and the weekend, a little bit cooler, 70s to near 80 or so, and we'll see some better chances of afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. military strikes drug vessel from Venezuela killing 11. The U.S. military carried out a strike against a drug-carrying boat from Venezuela, President Trump said Tuesday, escalating tensions with that country's authoritarian government just days after the Pentagon deployed warships to the Caribbean to stop the flow of cocaine. There's more where that came from, Trump said in a news conference at the White House, promising further actions. Trump later posted on social media that he had ordered a strike on, quote, positively identified, unquote, narco-terrorists from the cartel Tren de Aragua operating a small boat carrying drugs to the U.S. The strike resulted in the deaths of 11 terrorists, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post showing a declassified video of the video being struck and exploding. Please let this serve as notice to anyone even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware, he writes. Thank you for your attention to this matter, with lots of exclamation points. I love it. I hate what drugs have done to this community. Not only have I lost my best friend to a drug overdose, but the overdose deaths related to fentanyl, the addiction that takes place around methamphetamines, cocaine, is destroying American lives. It's targeted at our youth. And these narco terrorists have killed more people than any radical Islamist group has ever done. And yet we kind of treat them with kid gloves. Oh, we're going to welcome you to our country and our judicial system. And, we'll prosecute you and you can spend some time in jail. To see a drone strike one of these drug-carrying boats was what this war has needed for a long time. A serious commander-in-chief that's not going to allow Americans, particularly young Americans, to be killed by these narco-terrorists and these drug cartels. Now, progressives on the other side, Javier Marbury, representative, saying, this is horrifying. And Dems in Congress can and should say so. You don't have to wait for the poll testing to say that this is an extrajudicial killing. Text messages are green, 7638, saying, Jeff, you are so pathetic. You actually think selling drugs is a capital offense and not even proven in court? Just willy-nilly, we can kill anyone we think may have drugs? Wow, you are what is wrong with our nation. You don't believe in America or Christian values. Bill, I've laid out where I stand. What do you think?
It bothers me that this is an extrajudicial killing. That if we want to be the shining city on a hill, if we want to be the example of justice, then I believe you have to put the people that you disagree with the most on trial, the ones that are the most difficult. What I'm worried about is the idea that this has now become a capital offense. Now, I understand your presentation on this coming into the country and killing men and women and children, although I disagree with that being the primary purpose. They're coming in for cash. And we have lots of examples of a whole bunch of people across the country that have done the drugs that have come in and been just fine and continued to live and everything else. There's an entire story about the cocaine-fueled parties during the Cowboys Super Bowl runs. I mean, the amount of cocaine that Michael Irvin is alleged to have put up his nose would probably kill a small elephant. So the idea that they're doing this and the function is to kill a bunch of people, I disagree with. I do agree on the idea of the fentanyl being a danger, but what I have a concern about is the idea of this becoming a capital offense. And the reason it worries me is that if I can make the argument that we can have extrajudicial killings for someone that is bringing drugs into the country, then can I make the same argument for someone that is selling drugs in the country? are we walking closer and closer to what the guy in the Philippines, Duarte, was doing, where it was police were licensed to decide if you were a drug dealer or a drug user, they can kill you. Now, there were some innocent people caught up in that were shot by police that weren't drug dealers or drug users. But that was a rule that he had instituted. And if we agree this is a very strong, powerful statement by the president to stop this stem of drugs and the abuse of it here in the country, how hard is it to get to them doing it inside the country as well? It's a shorter leap for me. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that we're leaning into examples like Bolsonaro and those by Duarte. That worries me as a country that's supposed to pride itself on the judicial system and holding people accountable for crimes, but not this way. That worries me.
There's no evidence that these people were American citizens. In fact, they were likely foreign citizens. And I think the president would have to be clear on that before we could order a strike. You can't strike, unlike Barack Obama, an American citizen abroad engaging in terrorist activities. But we lost 3,000 people on 9/11. 3,000 people on 9/11. And we marshaled a military response halfway around the world to make them pay for the killing of 3,000 innocent Americans on that one day. Okay? We lose to drug addiction in this country 100,000 people a year. An astronomically larger number than the number of people we lost on 9/11. Okay? These drug cartels, and I'm not talking about foreign or American-born drug dealers that are in our streets. They can go through the judicial process. I think that's appropriate. But if you are a Mexican cartel, if you are a Venezuelan cartel, a Colombian cartel, the message that was sent by Donald Trump striking those boats, bringing drugs to kill Americans to this country was the right message, and I wish we would use more military resources to stop these narco-terrorists and save American lives. What do you think? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's go to the phone lines. Raphael, Denver. Good morning, Raphael. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning. Oh, and thanks for coming out and seeing us at IHOP the other day. It was nice to see you and your son.
Oh, you're welcome. We got a good breakfast over there with my buddies, and it was a pleasure to be there, and hope to see you guys again.
Hope to see you, man. Now, what's on your mind?
Okay, well, alcohol is a drug. Tobacco is a drug, and they kill millions of people a year. That doesn't count, the families that destroys, the secondary effects. Should we start bombing liquor stores or put it in jail the Philip and Morris company executives or the owners of the liquor stores? Should we start using drones to kill them too? Or is just another political thing just to prove something? I mean, I agree drugs are bad and all those people should be put in jail. I don't have any problem with that. But I mean, I would pick and choose again, just like with the special place here in Colorado.
I mean, Raphael, to your point, and this is a statistic I bring up regularly, tobacco kills 5 times more people than fentanyl does in this country. And in my mind, that's an argument against commercialization of drugs because you're not going to die from smoking one cigarette. You will die from taking one pill laced with fentanyl. But the fact that 5 times more people, 500,000 people die every year as a result of the use of tobacco makes a strong point, from my perspective, in limiting it. Now, again, we're talking about the difference between Americans and cartels. If there were cartels selling a drug that kills 500,000 people a year into this country, wouldn't we want to stop it and use the military to do it?
Oh, yeah, use all means to stop them. I mean, kill them like that, I don't agree with. But yeah, you should stop them, prosecute them, put it in jail. Let the judge, decide it. Let the let the law work. Like I said, are you putting in jail the cigarettes people, the alcohol people? No, you don't. So, is one life more important than the other one?
Rafael, those are fair points. I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Rafael's line is open. Give us a call at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's talk Mountain High Appliance. This Labor Day, savings are continuing, but you only got them for a limited time, and the folks over at Mountain High Appliance are working overtime. Now at Mountain High Appliance, you can save up to 70% on floor models, closeouts, and one-of-a-kinds from brands like Whirlpool, Bosch, and GE, along with more high-performing, dependable appliances at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the best selection, prices, and services at Mountain High Appliance. Visit Mountain High Appliance today and experience the difference. Bill, where do you put the onus? I mean, look, you can make the argument that these drug cartels are just providing a service that the American people want already. So do we really need to kill drug cartels when they're just selling a product that the American people want?
I disagree with both examples because I disagree with the idea that if you're bringing drugs into the country, that it then becomes a capital offense without any sort of a trial. And I disagree with the idea that the drug smugglers should be allowed into the country because they are providing a drug or a product that Americans want. Americans have created the demand for that drug, and not everybody dies from it. And we talk about fentanyl being a real huge problem, but we've got a whole bunch of people doing all sorts of other drugs living out on the Denver streets that aren't necessarily dying from it. So I disagree with the idea that one does always equate to the other. For me, the strongest is to hold them accountable, to put them on trial and hold them accountable. And in some cases, in order to shut down the drug trade, you grab the people like the traffickers to get to the guys who set up the supply chain to arrest them, who then send you to the guys who are the organizers of where the supply chain is going. And then to get to them, you go to the guys at the top end of the cartel. That's normally how you shake these things down in law enforcement. And that's some of the ways that we've been able to slow down and hamstring some of the other cartels. However, here, it's just, you're dead. I have a problem with that we as America in these situations are going to decide that this is a capital offense. And that's important. This is about us deciding this is a capital offense.
Bill, when we were going after Islamic terrorists that were clocking off suicide vests, those might kill 20, 30 people on a bus. We didn't arrest them to have judicial proceedings. We targeted them with drones and killed them and sent in, U.S. Navy SEALs to kick down doors.
I don't believe
and shot Osama bin Laden in the head.
I don't believe that suicide bombers equate to drug dealers. I don't think
these
they
drug dealers are
functionally
killing
the same thing.
more people.
Are they? How?
Yes.
How?
If you have a fentanyl and these guys are arresting these guys trafficking fentanyl up here that could kill, you hear these numbers, 100, 200, 300 people in a car.
Here's the question. So because the drug trafficker made the fentanyl available, they're now responsible for the people they kill or people that use it and then die, correct?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Isn't that the argument the Democrats are making about holding gun manufacturers responsible for gun violence? Isn't that the exact same thing, that this company has created a product, made it available to Americans, and some Americans are killing each other, and they want to have lawsuits against gun manufacturers? Do you agree that we should have those lawsuits against gun manufacturers to shut them down?
No, because
why is it different in that case versus the other?
One's
because
a constitutionally protected right. You don't have a constitutionally protected right to use drugs.
Based on your freedoms, yes, if you want to. Why shouldn't you be able to? I mean, it's a libertarian argument. It's a
Bill,
libertarian argument.
I know,
per
but
se.
it's not written into the Constitution.
It's a libertarian argument per se, but the idea you talk about the idea of having our individual freedoms, the choice of what drugs or what I put in my body within reason should be my own choice necessarily. And as long as it is not equating or having negative consequences on those around me, even if my consequence is death, as long as it is not tearing the other people down around me, theoretically, I should be allowed to take that drug that does and could lead to my death. In theory, the issue that
I know
I've got
that this is in theory.
Yeah.
But in reality, we have cartels that are murdering more Americans than anything that the radical Islamists did.
And the liberals will tell you that we have gun violence that is ending lives all across the country. And so that's what I'm talking about. Again, I'm just making this intellectual argument. I'm not picking up the liberal side. I don't think we should be suing gun manufacturers.
Sure.
But I'm using the premise
Yes.
that if they create a product that in some cases used by Americans causes death, they should be held responsible. I think then, based on the same logic, we can hold the gun manufacturers responsible. That's the difficulty I have in this premise. That's why I disagree with what Trump's doing.
The problem
That's why I disagree with the gun manufacturer
you have a country
lawsuits.
set up that has a constitutionally protected right. So in your theory, you're missing a big problem,
No, I'm
a big
not.
issue there.
No, because inside the Second Amendment
yes.
says well regulated. That's in the Second Amendment. And there are all sorts of guns
So
and
does
weapons that
shall
we
not
don't
be
have.
infringed.
Hang on a sec, but it does say well regulated. You can say shall not be infringed, but it does have regulations, and we already exist in a society where we have regulations. You can't go down and buy the same guns the military has. We have regulations. That exists. So the idea of shall not be infringed is a wonderful slogan, but in practicality, in reality, doesn't exist. We have regulations. We have that. So I disagree with that. I'm talking about the idea of if you believe X leads to Y, meaning the drugs and the drug importing leads to the death of Americans, and then they should be held responsible.
Bill,
I can make the same arguments about
I think it's a
firearms.
fruitless intellectual exercise because you just run down that category and you're like, we're going to blame McDonald's for getting people fat. We're going to blame candy for teeth rotten. I mean, you can do and all that. In
Not
this
necessarily
particular
fat,
case,
fat and rotting teeth is different than death. That's why I'm pinning this on death, because that was your issue.
Josh,
the idea that these drugs,
Bill, more
the
people
idea,
die of obesity than they do all this.
I don't think
but
you
I
can
think
tie
it's
that
a fruitless
directly to-
experiment because at the
Why?
end of the day, you have cartels that are directly. You have a foreign threat that is killing Americans. Okay,
But
a foreign
Democrats would
threat
say that
is
the guns
killing
are a threat killing
Americans.
Americans. But Democrats would say that it's a threat killing Americans. The guns. That's the issue. Is that I
No,
can take
Bill,
all the
it's
words
not
you're
the
using
issue.
and pick it up and use it
No,
in a different
but-
argument.
because
That's why I
you're
disagree with the
actually
argument.
avoiding the conversation.
No, I'm not.
You're totally avoiding the
No.
conversation.
No, I'm clear on the conversation. This should not be done. We should not be extrajudicial killing the drug traffickers outside the country. You think we should. I think we should.
And my
so I'm
question,
exploring that
my
as far as that
question
idea as
is,
to why we should.
We didn't seem to have that problem when we were doing it against radical Islamists.
Because they're not necessarily the same. You're equating someone strapping, you equated someone strapping explosives onto their body the same as someone importing drugs into the country. I don't believe they're equivalent. I don't believe that those actions are necessarily equivalent. I believe the person that is strapping the explosives on their body has a pointed different outcome than the person that is importing drugs into the country. I think the outcomes and what they're looking for are different. I don't think you can equate the two.
Yeah, and I'm pointing out you actually have more death happening with these drugs. So we didn't seem to have a problem drones hitting foreign Islamic terrorists, but now we have problems with drones hitting narco terrorists, killing drugs that kill more people. All right, let's get to the phone lines. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Speaking of Dan Caplis, I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America, right there with us on the values. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Phone lines are hot. Text messages are hot. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. As you can imagine, text messages are hot on either side of this. Donald Trump taking a bold strike on drug smugglers coming up from Venezuela, killing 11 by hitting them with a missile on their boat. Is this a clear message to narco-terrorists that the United States is not messing around anymore? Or is this an extrajudicial killing? Text messages on either side of this, 2664. I think Jeff has to justify everything Trump does on your show. Drugs are bad, but Trump is not judge, jury, and executioner. Trump knows all his followers love this kind of stuff. Trump is a uniter. He unites our enemies against us. 5600 saying, Bill, you belong on MSNBC. Doing one of their round tables.
He called me some other numbers. He had other names, too, in that text message as well. And so I just responded, yep, name calling. Always the best way to make your point. That's exactly it. We learned that when we were 5. Some of us continued to evolve intellectually and develop a frontal lobe. Others, like the text messenger that calls me names, unfortunately got stuck. It's okay. We feel for you.
Speaking of being 5.
I'll talk slower if it helps on that text messenger. It could help him catch up.
Being 5, speaking of that, you remember yesterday the guy that kicked me in the back got sentenced to making better choices class?
Yeah, that's great.
And somebody responded, isn't that kindergarten?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Making better choices class.
Yes, making better choices. Yes, that's fantastic.
And then another person responded, hey, is that thing only restricted to people that have been charged with that? Because I think making better choices might be something good for me, too.
Yes,
All right.
Oh, yeah, me too.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. John, Denver. John, what do you think about what Donald Trump's doing against the narco-terrorists?
Yeah, good idea, bad idea?
I think it's a great idea. It's about time somebody put a stop to this garbage going on. And while at the same time, I blame the people of the United States for basically inviting this in. You create a demand for it, there's going to be someone there to supply it. However, your argument, Bill, and by the way, Bill, I appreciate you coming up with these arguments. Other than the guy who cursed you, I think it's really good to hear the other perspective. But with your argument in regards to suing gun manufacturers for gun violence, cars kill more people than guns do. So should we be able to sue car manufacturers for people's behavior?
What's the intent based on the product? And cars might be a closer one as far as it, because the intent of the product, I would say that when you're going to be picking up a gun in many cases, chances are you're looking to kill something that's on the other end, unless you're going for target practice. But that's not, target practice is not necessarily involved in the gun violence epidemic that we have in our country. So if we want to, since everybody that is using drugs or buying drugs isn't looking for the same end functionally, then should we then pick it up and make it cars? If we think that is a great idea that we can extrajudicially hold these drug manufacturers responsible and killing them because they are, because some of the people that use their products die, should we then be able to sue the car manufacturers for the same thing? Would you agree that's a great idea? Or should we take more stringent approaches to them? Since you said that this idea of the drug enforcement is a good idea, would you support that?
Well, I'll give you. Well, let me start here. Okay. Yes, I do support that. However, what's interesting to me is everybody says, well, the intent of the gun is to kill something. And while I agree that's true, how is it then that cars, which are manufactured with the intent to benefit society, end up killing more people than the thing that's manufactured to kill people?
It's just based on how the product is manufactured. If you manufacture a gun and it isn't efficient at killing the thing you're pointing at, you've made a bad gun. However, with cars, we have all sorts of safety features to not kill people. In fact, if you look at the reason why most of your cars today have those really tall front ends and they're not pointed down like Ferraris used to be in the 80s, it's because it used to kill people. When we had those slow cars, hitting someone as a pedestrian would do greater damage. When we have those big, tall front-end cars, you do less damage when you're hitting people. So we actually have changed the manufacturing behind it.
Yeah, but guys,
that's what I'm saying.
We're in an interesting spot because the reality is, though, you have a foreign entity that's doing this killing. Okay? You have...
No, Americans are doing the killing. Americans are taking the drugs.
No, Americans are not doing the killing.
No,
the
Americans
drug
are taking
is doing
it.
the killing.
No, but
and
Americans
the
are
drug is
taking
coming.
it, though. But
No,
Americans are taking it.
Right. No,
no
I mean, they're
none of
not.
the cartels are coming into America and force feeding us the drugs.
Are they not?
No, we're doing it
Really?
ourselves. Yeah.
You don't think that the operations that the cartels are doing is resulting in the death of Americans? You think that they're doing this to themselves?
The words I used were force feeding. John, weigh in on this for us. Do you think that the cartels are force feeding us the drugs, or are we taking the drugs? Where do you fall on that one?
We are taking the drugs, but we are taking the drugs with the intent that we're going to get high, not when it's different when they're lacing the drugs and we don't know it. So I think there's a little bit of gray area in there.
And I think you have to take into consideration that there's a concerted, organized effort to get Americans hooked on these drugs for monetary gain on their end, right, to make money. But the result is they are killing 100,000 of us a year. And what we want to do is take them through some judicial proceeding. Hey, you killed 100,000. Now, Osama bin Laden killed 3,000, and we sent in Navy SEALs to shoot him in the face. These guys are killing 100,000, and we think that the right strategy is to hand them a lawyer to go through a judicial process.
But last time I checked, though, none of the drug cartels are having people show up and tearing down buildings or flying planes into them. The intent of the actions are different. And again, just as John outlined, the Americans are taking the drugs. So the intent's different there. I don't think they're necessarily equatable.
John, appreciate the call. Thanks so
John.
much. John from Denver. His line will be open, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Mark in Aurora. Good morning, Mark. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning. Well, I guess I'm for what happened out there. And part of this is it's an extra-national force that or conspiracy, however big or small, because it's probably a group of maybe 100 people that put that boat together and sent it north. And then these guys were probably afforded the opportunity to surrender. I don't think they were just I don't think we have military ships out there just saying, hey, we're going to just start blowing other ships up. They identified that ship. I'm guessing they called them. I'm guessing they fired warning shots first. And that's just a guess.
But aren't you making a lot of guesses that may not be proven? And wouldn't that change some of the conclusions? Again, I'm not asserting one way or the other they did or they didn't. But so far, in the explanations we have been given, none of those things have been outlined. So I personally
they have not been reported.
So
no.
for me, I'm not going to assume they did, but I'm also not going to assume they didn't. I think it's a question that is up in the air. And for me, it even colors my impression of the situation more if they did not. If they did make the attempts, okay, then I actually can get closer to where Jeff is on the idea of taking extrajudicial action. But if they didn't, that swings me even harder the other direction. That makes sense?
It's not extrajudicial action because they're not in the United States. They're on the high seas.
Aren't we holding them responsible for breaking our laws? Our laws, not anybody else's.
Yeah, and I think the message has been clearly sent, and it's been sent before this.
But wouldn't that be
Stop
extrajudicial?
killing Americans, or we're going to use our military to end your life.
Wouldn't that be in this situation without a declaration of war? Wouldn't that be, and against another nation? Wouldn't that be extrajudicial? We are killing someone based on interpretations of our laws. Yeah, that would be extrajudicial. Yes.
And I still say it's not extrajudicial. Again, because they're not in the country. Maybe you say that our Constitution follows the flag that's on the vessel that they're operating from, and that would afford them constitutional rights because they're interacting with a flagged ship.
And guys, a reminder too, they're not out on the Caribbean enjoying a Mai Tai. Okay, they're bringing in drugs to kill Americans. We've told them to stop it. We've put all of our resources into trying to stop them. We've notified them stop. They're not just out there. They are driving a boat into our country to kill Americans.
They're not driving the boat into the country to kill Americans.
Yes, that's exactly what they're
doing. They're doing
doing
it here to make money, and some of the consequences are some of their users die. They're not looking to kill all of the users. They're not specifically trying to kill their demand. I'm sorry, but you keep making this equation that all the drug dealers are trying to come here to kill all the drug users.
We're losing 100,000 Americans a year to these guys.
It doesn't prove your point. It doesn't prove your point that all the drug dealers are trying to kill all their customers.
I think they know exactly what they're doing.
It doesn't prove your point that all the drug dealers are trying to kill all the Americans. You keep making this a point that all the drug dealers are coming here to kill people. I disagree with that, and that hasn't been proven.
It's weird to me that that you believe that there's an out in this argument because they're not putting a gun to somebody's head and pulling the trigger.
They're not coming here to kill us. They're coming here to abuse us, and that abuse is deadly.
Yeah,
that's more fair.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark.
In some cases deadly, in some cases not. Ask Michael Irvin.
All right, Mark, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Phone lines are hot on this one. We're going to continue to get to your calls. We do have an open line at 303-696-1971. Donald Trump using the military to strike cartels bringing drugs on boats to America. An extrajudicial killing? Unconstitutional? Or responding to narco-terrorists that are killing Americans, finally fighting the war on drugs the way it needs to be fought? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump targeting narco terrorists, smuggling drugs up from Venezuela, killing them. 11 dead, sending a clear message. He's not messing around anymore with these drug traffickers. But Democrats saying that this is an extrajudicial killing and it should be contested. What do you think, Thomas, Denver? Good morning, Thomas. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff, Billy. Yeah, I think that they should continue to do this. And I think the biggest thing is they should just not say anything. Blow them out of the water, leave it alone. I mean, this is all over the news. It's all televised, and that's the issue. It should be covert, and that's that.
What about sending a message to these narcos, though, and even your local drug dealer on the street that we're not messing around anymore. You're killing Americans. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to prosecute you. The DEA's out there working. The Border Patrol's out there working. And we're now even using the military to go after these narco terrorists out there on international waters.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm for that. But, all the bleeding hearts, now, I mean, like this Garcia guy that was trying to be exported. Look at the problems this guy caused. He was clearly an illegal alien, and it's a bunch of crap. You know what I mean? But
is Trump revealing what we all know is that Democrats are always going to put illegal immigrants and criminals first. Always will.
Well, like the governor and the mayor of Chicago.
Right. And and George Brockler got into this. George said, look, I don't think he has the constitutional authority to send the National Guard to actually enforce any laws. You could flood the zone. They could walk around a lot, but they can't actually do anything, even direct traffic. But he's forcing the mayor of places like Chicago, Boston, Denver to go and side with criminals.
Wait, does this matter now, Thomas and Jeff? Does this matter in the conversation when we're talking about, and we'll just talk about, continue on the discussion of deploying the military into cities? The fact that, Jeff, you just acknowledged they can't do law enforcement, yet they're going there for crime. Do we not then admit this is a show? I mean, Thomas, you were talking about how difficult and we need to crack down on the crime and we're okay with the drug dealers and Trump being the strong leader. But if the people he's sending based on the military can't do the law enforcement, why are we sending them there?
Well, in my opinion, we've all seen videos of people attacking the police. They should be able to have a presence there, and I think that would thwart that. These guys, the police tried to police some of the transit systems and things like that. And these guys are jumping them and beating them and kicking them. If you got a couple of,
but that would be, 10, but Thomas, that would be law. That would be law enforcement. The National Guard would not be allowed to do that. They would have to. They would have to. No, they would have to be there. No, hang on. No, Thomas, I'm right. They would when they were deployed. Thomas, when they were deployed in L.A., they guarded federal buildings and ICE. Those are federal operations.
And it shut down those protests.
Hang on. I know, but hang on a sec. Thomas was talking about people attacking regular, line duty law enforcement. They weren't in L.A. or in D.C. protecting regular line law enforcement because they can't. That's my point.
No, you know what? Let me tell you something, Billy.
Yes.
If I saw 3 people kicking the hell out of a cop, I'm on board. I'm in on it.
You're going to kick him? You're going to go kick the cop?
Oh, he's going
to kick the cop. Why'd you kick the cop?
No.
Yeah, Billy, come on.
Dude, you said when I see 3 people kicking a cop, I'm on board.
Well,
what am I supposed to draw? That's why I was surprised, Thomas. What conclusion am I supposed to come to?
That's your mind. I would be in there. I'm calling about saving the people. Why would I say go kick the cop?
That's why ridiculous. I asked. I thought it was weird.
Yeah, that's because that's your mind, Billy. I'm on board to save the cop. I'm in on it. And if there was National Guard standing by, they're in on it. You got to protect the law enforcement. You know, the bleeding hearts, which you are one of them. It's just ridiculous, some of the stuff you're saying. And I'm all for saving these people, and I'm all for getting the illegals out of here, or at least having them self.
Tom, we got to run. Appreciate the call. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
710 KNUS.